and welcome back to the Freedom Podcast. We're here with G. I'm
Welcome,
Josh.
welcome.
Hey, and we are here to talk in this episode all about how do we as people gain wisdom? What do we do to seek counsel? So the whole principle that I wanted us to go through today, G, was that there are people listening to this right across the world in lots of different forums and formats and cultures. And one of the things that we all have to do at some point or another is make quite big decisions in our lives. And how we go about that is really important. And I thought it'd be great to just focus in, especially as we're kind of doing this This is the Way series all about Proverbs and seeking wisdom right across the church, is that we look at how do we seek wisdom from leadership in our lives? What do we do when we've got these big decision crossroads that are ahead of us? So we're going to jump right into this today and start getting some thoughts from you, G. What would you say to someone who has got something coming up in their life, something they've got to consider or weigh up? What would you advise them to do?
Well, the first principle is found throughout Proverbs. And obviously, Proverbs, much of it, I think it's 900 of those Proverbs were written by Solomon. King Solomon, say he's the wisest man ever. And here he is, he's talking about wisdom. And he says, the one who is wise seeks counsel. And I think that's the very first principle, is finding counsel is so key. Not just making a decision based on, hey, I've just got this gut feeling. I've got this great idea. I just feel that this is right. Our feelings can get us into trouble. And I think what you look at when you see Proverbs is this thing, look, ask for wisdom, but wisdom is found through counsel. And it actually says the counsel of many. So it's like, don't go to your friend who always says yes. Friends aren't always the best source. Friends normally are encouraging. They're going to tell you what you want to hear. That is not wise counsel. Counsel is someone that has maturity, that has some level of oversight, is tested. Their lives are tested in some way. They have, you can see that they understand, the decisions, and counsel is important. And in fact, there's someone who gets counsel themselves. There's no point in going for counsel to someone who doesn't seek counsel. So there's this principle in life of listening and being available. And in fact, part of that counsel is accountability. Accountability, very simply, is I'm prepared to be questioned about things, to question my decisions. And it's
really
just
good.
like, ask me questions. And this is where we become defensive. We don't like to go for counsel because someone might say, do you know what? I don't think that's a good decision. So in being questioned, we step back and we only go to those that we want to find the answer that agrees with us. That is not true counsel. That is actually just getting someone to agree with us so we can do what we want to do.
Absolutely right. And I think that I've experienced that many times where people are even telling you that something is happening and they're trying to just say, oh, I'm just letting you know, like, oh, I'm informing you. And they know that there's something about bringing it to leadership. And I just want to say, it's really clear right through scripture that where there is something that you're considering big, get some wisdom from the leaders that are in your life. These are not just people around you that are administrators or they organize meetings. They are spiritual leaders and authority that God has placed in our lives. So if you're making big decisions for your future, if you're thinking about things that are going to affect your life in a big way, just go and check it out. I think sometimes we are so quick to jump in decisions and not go through those processes that God has placed around us for a safeguard. Because it says that in the scripture that even the heart can deceive us. Well, this is what I feel the right thing is to do. Well, guess what? Sometimes even the heart can lead us in the wrong direction. And I think there's probably every person listening to this can think of when you thought of a time where you felt it was so the right thing to do. Maybe it's the right person. Oh, I just thought, that's going to be my future wife, my future husband. And you're thinking in that way. And then it turns out, oh man, I was wrong about that. That wasn't God speaking. That was my heart got that wrong. And so if we have the humility to know that sometimes we can be wrong, it makes it a lot easier for us to seek wisdom from others. So it's right through this scripture, it's right through this principle, and yet sometimes we miss it.
Yeah, it's coming back to that enemy that we all have, which is called pride, where we like to reserve ourselves for the final word. So it's, yeah, you can tell me this, but I'm still going to do it anyway. And obviously God says that he gives grace to the humble. Who are the humble? I would say the humble are the ones that are saying, do you know what? I want to be open to counsel.
Yeah.
I want to be open that there might be another way of moving forward, another decision that might be a healthier decision, or maybe it's now's not the right time. That's a big one, Josh, is often, you're making a decision, and maybe the decision in essence is something, yeah, I really feel that this is right, but the timing is key. As in, do you know what? Another year, if you prepare, another year, if you sort of plan through this, hey, next year could be the right timing. And so again, that impatience we sometimes have to jump into things and not allow a testing of time. What then takes place is we jump into something too soon, and we then face challenges. I also want to perhaps just say something to the younger listeners out there that might be thinking about decisions after college, or, what to do with, those early years of decisions around future and career and moving, and shall I go to this, city to study, etc. Again, get counsel. There is so much value upon your life. And if you are a believer and you're a follower of Jesus, I'll tell you what, the decisions you make early on set you up. And I've seen people just make the decisions without counsel, without asking for input from someone that might have more experience about, do you know what, this might be healthier, not just for your future, but for your spiritual life. This could be another option. Hey, even what about academy? Next year we're going to be relaunching our residential academy in the UK, and it is going to be like Mark II, the best ever. And when we start that, it's, we're looking for people to, come and sign up for that. But are you open for counsel about it? Or is like, no, I've made my plans. Maybe God wants to speak and say, do you know what about taking a year out? Are you open to actually have a conversation before you make the decisions? Because that might interrupt your plan, but it might be exactly what will change the direction of your life.
Yeah, that's really good, G. And I think being open is so key. And one of the things that I think about is our mentality. So when we say seeking counsel, we're not talking about having a counselor. We're not talking about sitting in a therapy chair. And we're talking about to seek counsel is to ask questions and be open to the answers. And I think that if you want to be someone that seeks counsel in your life, is that right? I've got a big decision before me. I'm about to open a new business. I'm about to buy a house. I'm about to make an investment. I'm about to make an approach for a relationship. Get some counsel in your life. And again, not just from people that are alongside you, but also over you in terms of spiritual authority. Get some wisdom from them, because there's something around, sometimes we don't take the time to ask those questions. And then when things go wrong later down the line, or things don't work out as we thought, I think we often see the holes, but do we always learn the lessons from it?
Yeah. Part of my role, obviously, in leading Freedom Church, across the world is really having to make leadership decisions. But even just to share this, that even this past week, I'm used to making decisions, looking at things. So, right, let's do this, let's do that. But I'm continually aware in certain situations where I may have some emotional involvement or some sort of perspective that I might just think, do you know what? I've got a check here, that I will go to someone and I will say, look, this is what I'm thinking. This is the decision I want to make in this situation. It might be a bit of a complex situation or a pastoral thing, but I just want to run this by you to get your perspective. And so I do that, and I invite that in. And often it's like, yep, I think you're, that's great. And there's like a thumbs up, or sometimes it might be, maybe if you just do it that way first, that might help the result. It's like, yes, thanks for the perspective. So just wanted it, just to share that even as I lead, and I've led for sort of, 37 years nearly, that even now I'm very conscious that I will see a certain perspective, and I want to still be open for counsel. So counsel is receiving and being open about, hey, maybe there's someone that is standing further away from my situation that has a view or some wisdom that will go into the pot, and I can look at it and say, actually, that's really healthy. I didn't think of that. That's great counsel.
I love that, G. And I think even for my own experience as well, I was just reflecting on the fact that we've been planting churches together over 10 years now. We really started in Freedom Hereford as we went there, and we started planting there, but then also into Freedom Cardiff. And Rose and I are involved in a lot of that and learnt a lot. And I think looking back from that point, we've planted over 30 odd churches, and I think that there can be a lot of almost confidence about, hey, we've learned a lot of lessons over the years, and we know what we're doing now, and we're actually just getting ready here in Raleigh to do a building opening and launch our building after being here for almost 4 years. This is a really significant phase for us to be able to open more widely to the public and invite people in, and we're really excited about it. And I'm learning some things from some other church leaders and pastors right now that I did not know, and there is so much that I'm gaining counsel from these people. And I think that if I look back to when I moved here, I could look at, I think I know what to do. I've got these convictions. This is our approach. But now, 4 years in, and starting to learn from other pastors who've actually planted not dozens of churches but hundreds of churches, is like, there's still a lot that I can learn. There's so much that I can gain in wisdom and experience. And I think sometimes we perhaps graduate ourselves out of needing, I know what I'm doing here. I don't need that anymore. And actually, there's something about remaining humble to say, I still want to seek wisdom and counsel.
Yeah, that's that perspective thing again. It's, you've been on a certain journey. We've been on a journey with Freedom Church, and we don't have all the answers. We're learning as we journey. We're pilgrims on a mission. And on that mission, we're going to encounter different people. Yeah. And the questions we ask can be key to us arriving at where we end up. It's so important, and it's the same for every one of us, is on your journey, whatever that calling is, whatever your purpose is, God places people, and those people, they are there to point the way. Even in Samuel, the book of Samuel, around David and Ziklag, and they have all of their families that have been kidnapped, and David's army goes off, and they don't know where to find them, but they find a slave that's been left on the roadside.
Yeah.
And David gets counsel from a slave that is new, and he says, tell me, do you know where they've gone? And he says, they went that way. And I think this is good. And actually there's this verse here, Josh, in Ecclesiastes 4 verse 13. It says, a poor yet wise youth is better than an old and foolish king who no longer knows how to receive instruction.
Wow.
And I love this because obviously David was young at this point, but he was king. But it's so interesting because, even some people who they may be a genius, they may be kingly, but if they can't listen to instruction, you're better off to be young and poor and ready to listen to counsel. And that's what it's saying there. And I think David, even then, it's like, I might be a king, but I'm going to ask even this like slave, I'm going to ask them, maybe they hold some advice, some counsel, and he listens, and they go and recover their family, and God moves through it. I think that's a powerful story.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. And I think that one of the things about this whole principle, G, about gaining counsel, seeking counsel, it's an obvious one, but you've got to do it before the balls are already in motion. There's no good, well, it's almost religious in a way,
It's
of
great.
saying, I want to just come and run some things by you, and they start talking to you about what's going on, and it's like, oh, we've already put the house up for sale, we've already done this, we just want to get your counsel on it. It's like, guys, you've already made your decision. It's very difficult or impossible to speak in and give any kind of wisdom when the horse has already left the gate. It's like, it's already bolted. And there's something around, if you want to honestly, with integrity, come and seek counsel in a godly way, you've got to do it before decisions have already been made, before you've already set your heart on something. You've got to come open-handed. It's like, how are you bringing this thing? So I want you to give me some wisdom. I'm after your, hey, you've got experience, and I come and I bring this issue before you, but my hand is closed as I bring it before you.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't give you anything to help you. The only way is that if your posture is with an open hand with the issue on it, and is saying, I'm open, I'm willing, I'm willing to listen. And I think that, like you said earlier, G, people often close their fist and keep it to themselves, is when they don't actually want to hear anything other than that they've already been thinking about.
Yeah.
Like,
there's confusion.
Yeah.
There's confusion really between, I'm now going to speak to maybe spiritual oversight or to a leader about the decision I've already made, but I'm trying to make out that I'm being accountable. So it's like, it looks like I'm coming for counsel, but I've already made the decision. And the amount of times that I have had that is incredible.
Unbelievable.
When you listen, see, there's two ways of communication. The one is with an open hand of saying, hey, I am considering and I've made no decisions yet, so I want to receive counsel. So it's like, that's at the start of the journey, as you said. And then sadly, you don't get that many of those. You get more people that have said, this is what I'm doing, and I wanted to tell you, and I wondered if you had any advice. My advice would be, find counsel perhaps towards the beginning, because you've already set the road. You put your address in your Google Maps, and you're already off. And you want me now to sort of bring some counsel. What you're after is my approval, and I can't bring approval.
That is good.
Because you've already made a decision. So it's like, hey, it's on you. Great.
So
God
true.
bless you. You're already going.
Gosh,
but don't pretend that is counsel when it's actually seeking approval.
That is brilliant, Chi. And I think the other differentiating factor for me when I've been in the situations is that someone who wants to come to and bring something towards you, and they do so positioning and posturing themselves like they're seeking counsel, but what they're actually doing is they're looking for advice. And the difference here is counsel comes from authority and it comes submitted. Advice is like, take it or leave it. If it works for you, then great. If it doesn't, so it's a different posture, isn't it?
Yeah, I've seen leaders do this. So leaders will come and they've got a situation perhaps that's going on maybe in the leadership group or the church they're running. And it'll be, got this, and you give input and say, actually, this is what you need to do. It's like, we've been here, we've done this. This is what you need to do. And then they go away, and 2 months later, they don't do that. They leave it. And then they say, oh, that thing just went, oh, it was a mess. You said, did you do what? Oh, no, because I thought that was just some advice. It's like, no, recognize that, when you come under that authority, there are times when this isn't just advice. If you go to the doctors and I don't know, I got this real problem with my knee, and and he gives you advice, says, look, you need to rest it because otherwise you're gonna, and then you go off on a big 10K run, and then you're sort of worse than ever. It's like, listen to the counsel you're given. You wouldn't do that. You'd say, doctor has said this, And I wish we had a little bit more of that in the church, where it's like, they've got my best interest at heart. This isn't about reducing my life. It's actually to make me healthier.
Yeah.
And if we could see sometimes our pastoral oversight and our leaders, our group leaders are there for our good and our health, I think we would listen more sharply to what they're saying rather than just think, take it or leave it.
And I think sometimes there is a false fear around like being controlled or something. So, if I bring something for counsel, what if I get controlled to do something that I don't want to do? But the thing is, if you're in safe godly leadership, so you got to think, do I trust the leaders that I'm under, and that God, if this is a godly authority in my life? If that's true, then it's safe. If there is distortion, manipulation, control in the community that you're in that spiritual leader, obviously there is a problem and there is ill health, but that is not the leader's natural disposition for most of the time. So you've got to think about, if you can trust that leader, then you should be able to go to them and offer open-handed the things that are going on in your life and gain wisdom from them, because God has put you in that environment to be able to do so.
Yeah, I absolutely believe in local church. I believe the way that God designed it, it's, there's not like hey, we're going to have model 2 of the early church. Like, we are the New Testament church. We're the church, right? And he's equipped us. With fivefold ministry, all these things. And we've got to realize that's there for our health. And what I would say is, if you're part of a church where you don't trust the oversight and the leadership, you need to find a church that you do.
Yeah.
It's not a case of I can't trust. You've got to really question, right, well, am I in a healthy place? Because you're then vulnerable. And I believe in the New Testament. I believe that the model of the church is the most amazing thing in our world, but it's based on trust, and you got to trust leaders. And if you're not, get in a church where you can trust. But if you are struggling to trust any oversight or leadership, then there might be a question for you to consider. Is it actually my attitude and my sort of unwillingness to submit to counsel? And that's like a big question for us to ask in that place. But I just believe so much that in the church there's good and healthy counsel.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that even to say, being in that position as a leader, you take that very seriously. It weighs. You're not like, I love getting to just be involved in people's lives. Come on, just bring me your decisions. I've just been waiting for. I've been sat on my chair all day, hoping that you. It's like, actually, it weighs heavy on us. We do pray into it. And I think that often I feel the most encouraged and open to say, like, how are you feeling about it? And almost being, when people are open and submitted and have come like neutrally, that's when almost I as a leader, Kate, let's talk about how you, but when people are already having made that decision, that's where I get more uncomfortable, because I'm like, oh, you didn't go the route of seeking counsel or wisdom. And that's where I've become more uncomfortable with it. But I've got to say, as a leader, it weighs heavy. It's not, we take those things very seriously.
Yeah, even last night, I mentioned this to you before we came on air, George, I had a rough night last night. It was just one of those nights, there's a lot of things going on, and a couple of things really heavy weighing on my mind about, the direction and the counsel I need to bring. And I'm aware, and some of that heaviness is, Lord, I really need, it's a weight. It's not, I don't take that lightly. It's not, I'm a leader and I make all these decisions easy. Now, I know that this is about people's lives. I know that how I lead can affect and impact. And so, as you said, Josh, we as leaders, we take that very seriously. We're accountable for that. And we really want, wisdom, and we want to do what, is right under God in that way. Can I also perhaps just add, Josh, about voices into our life? We're talking about counsel and about being open for that. But I also want to add this. We need to be open to the right voices. I've mentioned sometimes we listen to friends. My friend agreed with me, but also we can sometimes listen to other voices that don't know us at all. Some people will even listen to a prophetic word, or someone gives them a word of prophecy, and then they're thinking, well, that lines up with what I want to do. Just have wisdom. Even prophecy should be tested. So, and that means, that there is something about, okay, let's test this and see whether this is true, or am I looking into it to get it to agree with me? Even listening to maybe, whether it is a podcast, whether it is, I don't know, some message from churches around the world. There are so many voices and white noise out there. And we can almost use that to say, well, I listened to this message. I read this book. And now I'm going to make decisions in my life that are pretty big based on that, but I haven't had a conversation with someone I'm in relationship with. This is the key. You need to have, see, accountability works through someone that you're in relationship with, so that they can actually hold you to account, not some digital sort of distance that no one's going to question you anyway, and no one will know whether you got it right or wrong. So I just want to say, be very wise about the voices that come. Counsel isn't just listening to whatever voice, because you might have 5 voices, and I've said to some people, just choose what you're listening to, because sometimes it will bring confusion.
Great.
It's got to be our relationship.
That is brilliant. And I think that, again, I would so agree with that, because if you get multiple voices and they're conflicting, etc., and that's why I believe, coming to your local church and coming under the leadership that you're under, that's the most important thing, because they're people in relationship with you. And I think one of the powerful things about seeking counsel is not only it's in the moment of receiving, hopefully, the wisdom that you can gain out of that, but also it offers ongoing accountability. And guess what? We don't like with our decision making, with our lives. We don't want accountability. We want to do whatever we want to do. And so there's something about that posture where we get to actually practice humility. We practice submission that is so healthy for us in our character.
Yeah. And it's not that we always get it right. Sometimes we make those decisions, get them wrong, but counsel keeps us safe. It is like evaluating it and saying, do you know what? I learned from that. So not covering it up, keeping that to ourselves, it's almost like a sharing of it, because I think within that counsel can really help us avoid making ongoing mistakes. And that's why even in local church where you're in relationship, hopefully there's been a period of time where that leader will know you, will know some of your perhaps weaknesses, will know some of your strengths and tendencies. So what you're doing is you got someone that is speaking into that, and they believe in you. They're not holding you back, but there is something about, hey, just want to offer this in because I know that last year you did this and that's your tendency, but hey, maybe right now God is just speaking to you about, hey, just being more careful, being more wise around the friendships you keep, because it's got you into trouble in the past. Right. That's, again, the beauty of that local church.
And just as we finish, G, what would you say to people is that, well, what do I bring? Because I think, it's not common. I think the most common thing is people don't bother seeking counsel. And I think it is an issue for us, in our current age, is that we're not big on this. We don't, a lot of communities, time gone by, have had elders that they would come, they would ask questions, they would seek wisdom from. I think that's gone out of a lot of our society now. So it's not a very common thing in our world. So there are the odd person that they bring too much. And it's like, I've just been thinking about painting my bedroom, and I can't decide, whether it's green or it's blue. Please, will you pray for me? So what would you say are some of the guidelines around what you should bring to seek counsel on, and what you should just make a call for?
I think you have different levels of maybe things that you're considering. So different levels of seriousness. So if it is, maybe it's a new career move, maybe it's going to mean a new location. So there's those major things, which I think you're obviously going to want to get the best counsel that you can get. That's really important. So I think when they're life altering, and particularly maybe your family is going to affect your family as well, I think those decisions are so important. But another thing is even around finance. I've known people perhaps take on, hey, we just really wanted this house, and we go and they stretch themselves so much because they want this house, and they finally do it, make it happen. It's like God's answered our prayers. And then you find out later on they couldn't actually afford it. And they couldn't afford to do, we can't afford to do things. We can't afford this. And the pressure comes on. And it's like, even those things, just having counsel, that might not be necessarily a pastoral, but it might be someone who is just wise around money. So I think it's knowing where you go for some of those things. Hey, who is like got wisdom? That I'm a business person in our church that is like so wise, and you can tell from the fruit of their life, they've made good decisions. So it's also where you go around that. You might not necessarily want to go to the pastor about your financial decisions, life-changing decisions. I think that's a really big one that you've got to get counsel. This can change everything. But then coming right down to some smaller decisions, like, hey, I've been struggling on this team where I volunteer, and I just feel like I need 6 months out to have a rest. It's like, get some counsel on it. That's because really I don't think it's so much about a rest. I think it's actually about the rhythm of your life, or maybe your expectation. Maybe you're in the wrong team. Maybe there's something that God is doing in you. And I think, I would be going then to like a group leader or someone that would just say, hey, I just want to, before I make the decision, because we have this all the time. Oh, so-and-so have just dropped that, or they've just changed or come out. Get some counsel around it and say, right, maybe there's a different fit for me. Maybe there's someone else can see another way that I can't see of how I can perhaps pour out what's in me. And I think that's, it appears small, but that's, again, what the church is here for. We want to see people's gifting and purpose released. Well, how do you do that? By coming and just bringing that and submitting that and saying, hey, please speak into me. Get me some counsel. This is how I'm feeling. So it goes from the top to, the bottom. Also, can I say, obviously, around marriage or parenting, those are things we don't like asking about. We don't like going for. And I think there are, some of us just decide it's less embarrassing, or I just don't want to show that because people wouldn't know that we've got these struggles and challenges, maybe with our teenage, kid, or maybe within our marriage, there's just been a lack of intimacy for quite a long time. But what do? Don't really want to talk to anyone. Oh, can I encourage you? There are people that love you. Even if you go to a pastor or go to your group leader, they can direct you to someone that can really say, hey, we're going to help you. If you are open and you're willing to say, come on, we need some input here. We're not prepared to have a half measure. We want a full measure, in our parenting, in our marriage. You got to be open for counsel. And if you go for counsel, you got to be prepared to make some changes. You got to be prepared to say, maybe we got stuck here somehow, but we want to get unstuck. Deal with your pride. Be ready to say, come on, we're willing to sort of see something move and shift. That's like, I think the fruit of counsel is that you will see God's goodness through it.
There's no point in seeking counsel unless you're willing to listen and action what you receive. And so it's a great question of the posture of our hearts, our personal humility, where our pride's at, etc. So I just encourage you, listening to this, go out with a posture that is more willing to submit and run things by and gain wisdom. There's a whole book of Proverbs that is about this. You won't be able to almost get through a chapter of Proverbs without coming into this principle, because there is something so important about the way that God has created his kingdom that he wants us to do this. We don't have to figure it out by ourselves. And yet sometimes as humanity, we are so intent on doing that. We want to figure it out by ourselves. And actually God's saying, no, I've designed it differently to that. So I just finished with this proverb, and it says in Proverbs 19 verse 20, listen to advice and accept discipline, and at the end you will be counted among the wise. So
Amen.
we encourage you to run with that. Thank you, G, for making time for this today.
Come on, thanks for having me.
And we're just getting to gain from your wisdom there. We appreciate it. All right, we'll be back next week with another episode. See you soon.
Come on.